To the subject of the Kabbalah and Chassidus as taught by the Radziner Rebbe of blessed memory, the great Rebbe Gershon Chanukh of Radzin. I'm your host, Bezalel Edwards. We talked last time about Rabbi Yehuda in the Zohar, who asked Rabbi Shimon that on other nations, it's also true that God leads them. God leads the whole world, obviously. So why, when other nations rise up against us and we suffer at the hands of other nations, what's going on? And Rabbi Shimon answered him, you spoke well. What shall I curse that God is not cursed? What shall I bless that God is not blessed? So, in other words, when we, this is not good for the enemies of Israel to hear. So let's just say that everything's coming from God. And the enemies of Israel well know, and they tell us all the time that because Jews sinned, you don't have the land. Because Jews sinned, we're whacking them. That doesn't sound very moral to me. What about this Christian love? Love your enemy, you know? That's a hard thing to say, but look, a lot of blood has been shed in the name of that Christian love. Let me tell you, there's a long history of bloody warfare right from Constantine. And now that's okay. So the Muslim nations are rising up against Israel and saying, "Oh, we're the instruments to punish the Jews for their sins," like it says in the Quran. It's like it says in their own Bible. So to this I say, you want to be an instrument for another person's suffering? You want to be a pawn in God's game? Okay, submit. Go ahead, submit. But I just want you to know that the Jews, they're getting together. I live in a country with believers. I live in a country of people who do God's will, do mitzvot. Even the secular Jews are doing mitzvot. The Jews are getting better and better. We are a holy nation and a holy people. And even I tell you, even the lowest of Jews in Israel, they know the Torah, which is in itself a big mitzvah. Big mitzvah. The drug dealers in Israel know more Torah than most fine, upstanding, secular Jews. There's a great story I heard. The drug dealer in Israel, a famous drug dealer, was in an alley dealing drugs every day in the afternoon. A certain guy was walking by, and eventually he got fed up. He was a religious man. He got fed up one day because everybody knew about it. So finally he was ashamed to say anything. So the guy walked up to the drug dealer one day and he let loose and he said, "How dare you? How dare you sell drugs? You know what it says? It says in the Torah, Lifnei iver lo titen michshol, before the blind you shall not place a stumbling block." And before he could finish the verse, the drug dealer finishes it for him in the middle of the drug deal. V'yiretem Elokecha ani Hashem. And you shall fear the Lord your God, I am Hashem. The man starts going like this, that don't put a stumbling block before the blind, and the drug dealer says, and you shall fear the Lord your God, Ani Hashem, quoting the verse exactly as it was said to Moshe. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. It would be a little better if knowledge implies responsibility. But knowledge in itself has value. And the knowledge will lead to responsibility. I'm telling you, a lot of these people who are big drug dealers in Israel, or prostitutes or whatever, swindlers, they can become tremendous tzaddikim. They can become an army of righteous people. We are a holy people. Even the evil among us, they're not evil. They're not yet good. They will be good. And I'm saying this to all people. I'm saying this to my brothers and sisters and our cousins. So that's kind of a little drop-down bar on last week's session, the last session, about how the Jeremiah, this amazing verse in the book of Jeremiah, that she sounds like a snake on the move. How they said that Rashi actually says that has to do with the Egyptians. It's referring to the Egyptians, but in the ancient Egyptians. But in the Zohar, Her sound is like a snake on the move in the 46th chapter of Yirmiyahu, Jeremiah. That the Shekhinah moves like a snake. It's saying God moves like a snake because the Shekhinah might have her head in the dust, meaning that the lowliness of the Jews in the exile. But the tail, when the tail strikes, it's moving because of the head, because of the Shekhinah. And the Shekhinah rests with Israel in exile. No matter if we have the temple, we should be built speedily in our days, but even if we don't, the presence of God is with His holy people. Let's read a little further, so we don't go over 10 minutes. When the Torah was given, with the giving of the Torah, the simple meaning and the secret were given together. Then everyone understood according to his abilities. The knowledge of the Torah increased in the generation of the desert, the wanderings, the 40 years in the desert. With the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, the light of Torah decreased, and the illumination of Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral tradition, began. So the illumination of the written Torah was very strong in the 40 years of the desert, and when Moses passed away, at the end of that period, then the light of the oral Torah, the Talmud, which was an oral tradition until it was written down, all the way back to Sinai. Then it started to shine stronger. At the time when the Torah was given to Israel, the pshat, the simple meaning, and the sod, the secrets of the Torah, were given together as one. Each one understood the pshat and the sod, the simple meaning and this mystery, according to his particular level. This is as we find in the Zohar. All of the various meanings, secrets, mysteries, decrees, and punishments were all given as an inheritance to all of Israel. This is learned from the words preceding the Ten Commandments. Just before I am the Lord your God, it says in the book of Exodus chapter 20, verse 1, and God spoke all of these words, meaning He spoke the simple meaning together with the deepest mystery all in one. For the specific purpose, and why did He say all of these words, meaning all levels of Torah, from the simple meaning to the mystery? He spoke all of these words to say. The verse ends by saying to say, meaning all of this thing, the simple meaning, the drush, the remez, and the secret divine mysteries, which were all one, all in the same words of the Torah, were in order to say, in order to be given as an inheritance to all of Israel. The knowledge of the Torah increased in the generation of the desert, where we call this generation Dor De'ah. The generation of the 40 years of the desert, Moses' generation, is called the generation of knowledge, of consciousness of the Torah. Then with the passing of Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses passed away and the light of the written Torah decreased, just as we find in the Zohar. At the time Moshe died, the sun was darkened in the midst of the day, and the written Torah, which is the Aspaklaria de Meira, the illuminating shining mirror, was sealed and locked. The shining mirror of the Torah was locked on the day that Moshe passed away, and it became a darkly shining mirror, and a mirror that is not clear but still shining in an obsidian way. The sanctity of the prophets is inferior to the sanctity of the Torah. This was the beginning of the illumination of Torah Shebaal Peh. With Joshua, with the beginning of, even though it's in the written Torah, it's the level of the shining of the oral Torah. The Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral tradition, is compared to the moon, which receives from the sun. As long as the sun is shining, we do not see the light of the moon. When the sun sets, the light of the moon is revealed. This is comparing Moshe as like the sun, and Joshua and onward is like the moon. The prophets illuminated the light of the Torah Shebaal Peh. So it's interesting, we always think of from Joshua until the end of Chronicles as the written Torah. But in a certain level, it is the written Torah, but it's also on the level of the Torah Shebaal Peh, according to what the Raziner says here. This is as it is written in the Zohar. There is a difference between receiving from one's master and receiving from the messenger of one's master. What is the difference? It is written in the beginning of the Pirkei Avos, the Ethics of the Fathers, Moshe received the Torah from Sinai and delivered it over to Yehoshua, to Joshua. I received it and then afterwards gave it over to everybody, Moshe might say. When one receives from another, it is like the reception of the moon receiving its light from the sun. The light of the moon is entirely a revealed illumination of the light of the sun. We will continue a little later, Bezrat Hashem. Bli neder.